Good evening, I'm Kurt Sprang. Ramping up demolitions in Lakeview, but they may not all be free. Steve Bellis joins us now with details on a potential glitch. Steve?
Kurt, the Phase 1 demolition effort has been going on in New Orleans for months. The teardowns have just started in West Lakeview. It's a costly process with a lingering question of just who might get the final bill. This used to be a rental on Kennison, on the New Orleans side of the 17th Street Canal. It's one of 6 that belong to New Orleans fireman David Decarow and his wife Carmen.
I resided, well, I don't reside in any of these any longer, but I was born and raised right behind me, 7007 Kennison. We've been here for 50 years.
There have been mistakes here, he says, beginning with perhaps taking too much for granted.
Unfortunately, didn't have the flood insurance, relied again on the Corps, the levee board, and well, here we are.
With a change in some long-term financial plans.
I was subject to retire from the New Orleans Fire Department in September with this supplementing my income. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
The city is assuming the demolition cost with FEMA money. These houses are off their piers and fall under the category of imminent danger. If this had been a voluntary tear down, the city would be charging. And then there's the voluntary demolition with a plan to rebuild. That category hasn't quite been resolved for who would pay the freight, one of the many confusions in this long recovery. Volunteer Brad Fortier with the District 5 recovery effort stopped by to at least explain whether the Decarows will ever get a bill.
My understanding was that if the homeowner had flood insurance, that there was a very high likelihood that the city was fully planning on passing the cost of the demolition down through what's called their ICC component of their flood insurance policy.
But these owners didn't have flood insurance. Bad news, of course, but good considering they shouldn't be getting a bill. Shouldn't, with a tinge of a question mark.
In my heart of hearts, I can't imagine that they're going to pass this bill on down to someone who didn't have flood insurance and has already been through enough.
The next step, he says, is to steer the family through the Louisiana Recovery Authority process, if necessary, which would entitle them to a cap of $150,000 on each property. And then there's always the small business loan. Another maze, to be sure.
I'll personally meet with them and take responsibility for making sure that we get answers to those questions for them.
Now, when we left the Decarows and volunteer Brad Fortier, they were exchanging phone numbers to keep in touch. The District 5 Neighborhood Recovery Group is one of 13 districts asked by the city to come up with individual recovery plans. Kurt.
All right, let's hope nobody gets any surprise bills.